Hey everybody, Scout Crafty here again. It's Wednesday, midweek Wednesday. Hope you're having a great week so far. Again, we're still battling this heat wave over here. And you know, I told you when it gets hot, real hot, like it has been and humid, I like to relax and enjoy a movie or so. And during the heat of the day, you know, when I get up and watch a movie, and then later on when it cools down at night, I'll maybe come down to the shop and try and get something done or whatever around the house. But and when it's real hot like this, it just doesn't pay to go outside and take a chance on succumbing to the heat. So they've been putting some great movies on. You know, I watch the old movie channels. I don't watch anything really current. I have not much of an interest with the new stuff, but I was watching a couple movies the other day, and that they remade. And there's very few times that when you get a movie that could be remade and it's the second one is okay and enjoyable. A lot of times when they remake a movie, you say, you know, I didn't like the remake. Or very few times the remake is better than the original, you know, because there's a higher budget and whatnot. Two movies that come to mind that I just saw this week, and I wanted to see if maybe you knew these movies. The first one was The Fly. The original Fly, 1958, had Vincent Price and a couple other actors. It was a really interesting movie. It started off as a short story, believe it or not, that was published in a Playboy magazine. They made it into the movie, and the thing did really great at the box office at the time. And it was a great movie. I remember growing up as a kid, seeing this movie. Now, this is the original one, the original Fly, 1958, seeing the movie, and I remember the makeup. Remember that fly's head that, you know, they had. I don't want to give away the movie in case you didn't see it, but it was just amazing as a kid. And again, the movie was so good because they really built you up. You didn't have to see it all the time, and they didn't have to throw it in your face, the fly. You know, a lot of times it was just what you didn't see was just as scary as what you did see. So it was a great movie. If you haven't seen the original Fly, they remade it again with Jeff Goldblum back in the 80s. And it was a decent remake, you know, but modern compared to the original. I like them both. But the original one, I'll tell you, the makeup I remember seeing as a kid, the eyes, you know, the fly's eyes, it was just awesome. And the second movie that was just on this week was The Thing from Another World, 1951, the original. Now, they remade that one too. John Carpenter remade that in the 80s, called The Thing, with Kurt Russell. But the original one, oh man, The Thing from Another World. James Arness was the actual monster in that movie, or The Thing. And what a fantastic... I watch that every time it's on. I cannot just let it go. I can almost memorize the lines. And it's funny because I mentioned this before on the channel, that movie where they rattled off the lines so fast. You know, the dialogue is just bam, 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 spits it out so quick. And you really are entertained through the entire movie. I enjoyed it. The set design, Howard Hawks actually produced that movie. It was just a fantastic movie. If you get a chance to see the original, 1951, The Thing from Another World, it was called. And what's interesting, I remember what I guess got me as a kid. I remember thinking when they were in the, I guess it was the Antarctic or whatever, and they were with their great gear, you know, they had those winter snorkels on, and they were out there, and they found the spaceship, and they wanted to see how big the spaceship was, so they circled it, and they put their arms out to give an approximation of how big it was, and then there was that fin sticking through the ice. Oh, what a great movie. There were so many great scenes in that movie. Black and white, but it was just great. The filming of it, the suspense. If you haven't seen that movie, 1951, The Thing from Another World, give it a check out. And if you have, I'm sure you remember it. And you remember as a kid thinking, you know, remember that we didn't have the special effects, the CGI they have today. And back then you had to use your imagination, but they coupled it with a little bit of, you know, magic, of cinema magic, and it was enjoyable. I remember that. So I'm enjoying that. So I do enjoy the movie. So while we having this heat wave, take advantage of sitting down, relaxing, enjoying a good movie. And we got a couple good things to show you. Got some show and tell today So let's get right to that. Okay, first up, you remember last week we did this awesome palm grip ratcheting palm, and everybody liked it. You know, a lot of people went on eBay trying to put, you know, the prices go up as soon as we were all looking for it. But believe me, they're out there, and they're not too expensive. You'll find one. But we all like this, right? Everybody thought it was cool. And I told you that this came as a, you would buy this and you would buy another attachment that came with it. Came with all different types of attachments. So I went on eBay and I found a new old stock palm grip. You see this here? You can get it in all different size. They had different size screwdrivers, nut drivers. But this is a palm grip screwdriver. And you see how this is? And look at this. You see the little back here, and you what you do is you would take this like this, put it in there, and that is the original palm grip mechanism that you would buy here, and you could see how that would work. And there's your screwdriver. Now I bought this on eBay because it's new old stock. I paid like 10 bucks. Apparently the guy that got it for 98 cents, so that was a good buy. And then I think that Scott Durgar, I think he sent me this. And this is another palm grip. Look at this. That I had over here. And that's a nut driver. They came different size nut drivers. Same thing. You put this in like this. Now you had your nut driver, you know. So what an interesting setup of tools. I'm surprised they weren't more popular than they were. Now, incidentally, if ever you find anything with any magic marker or something like that on there, that is fun. That comes off so easily. And what you do is you get a little bit of either lacquer thinner or acetone. Just take a little bit on a piece of paper towel like this, just a little bit, and watch how quickly you can remove that magic marker from there, you know. So never ever, you can see it just totally takes it off. 1, 2, 3, and there you go. You got a nice clean surface. And so that's what you use, acetone or lacquer thinner, to remove only on metal. You got to be careful. Don't touch this on plastic or anything. That'll do damage. But when you get on metal, it takes the marker right off. So that's one tip you should always remember. Okay, next up, you remember last week I was talking about my Orange Crush, my love for this soda. Now, don't get me wrong. I do not condone drinking this stuff. Soda is obviously not the best thing to drink. What I do is every year I buy a case, 12 cans of soda every summer, and that has to last me the whole summer, and that's it. I don't, obviously you try not to drink this stuff, but you know, if it brings back memories and makes you happy, you know, what's better than happiness, right? So anyway, I said, you know what, I want one of them old cans we were talking about. Remember, we talked about the old cans, and so I looking online and I found this Bank. See this here? And it was like $6. So I said, you know what, I ordered this Bank, and I thought it was an original can, but actually it's not. You see, it's got the UPC symbol, whatever, and it's slot. But it's, you know, a nice presentation. But let me tell you then what I found also was I found a lot, including this 1972. Now, let me tell you, so there is a collecting market for soda cans. Of course, we all knew about oil cans and beer cans, but soda too. Look at what this Orange Crush soda can sold for just last week. Over $200 for an, that's crazy, right? Well, anyway, and I never seen that can before. But this here, I believe, is a 72. This is an original can. Look at here, and look, see what it says on top here. You see, well, that one here, here we go. Please do not litter, because you remember back in the 70s, a big thing. But one thing I found was interesting is this was 10 fluid ounce, 2 ounces less than the current can. So that's interesting. Along with this can, this came of a lot of two. It was this one and this can here, Tab. Do you remember Tab? Now this one here has the little pull tab inside. That's what people used to open it and then sometimes stick it inside. Let me pull that out there and show you what the pull. Maybe some of you haven't seen it, but Tab, this stuff was the original. I never drank this stuff because it had saccharin and we always worried about cancer and stuff, but this was the original sugar-free soda. Remember? Let me show you what the inside looks, that pull tab looks. Okay, now if you're old like me, you've seen thousands and thousands of these laying around the street. They were always a problem. And what these were, and you know what's even worse, sometimes they didn't work. We take for granted the new can pull top design is genius, because I've never had one fail on me. But these, you would get like out of every 20 cans, like one would fail. This thing would pop off and you'd be left with just you know, the tab in your hand. And it didn't happen often, but when it did, you were like, what are you going to do then? So you can see here, this was a pull tab in aluminum. These were, somehow they wound up into the, I don't know, into the lakes and the rivers, and they were polluting it. This was a big thing back in the 70s. That's why they came out with that new design. But what, you know, people used to do is you would take this, pull it, and then either you would toss it, and these would be all over the street, and that's what would get into the sewer and then eventually into the water. Or some people would do this. They pull it and do that, and then they would... I never did that. I always thought that I wind up choking or swallowing on, but a lot of people did. If you've ever done that, let us know in the comments, because a lot of my friends did. They would open it, pop the thing in there, and then drink it. But, so there it is. Old-time cans. These were much stronger, much heavier duty than the newer cans we have today. So interesting, right? Okay, next up, I'm kind of real excited to show this to you. This is one of my punch boards. I always thought this was the coolest thing ever. When I was a kid, growing up in the late 60s and 70s, there was a candy store around the corner, real old-fashioned candy store around the corner from me. And, you know, the candy store was a big thing for kids growing up. You know, go there and comic books and little gadgets and toys and whatever. But he always had one of these boards in there. And what this was, it was like, I guess it was a gambling board, really, more or less. Now, this one here is an old one. This one's actually from the 30s or 40s. And you can see here, it was 5 cents. And let me show you what this board looks like. You can see here, it's like, it feels like almost like a board. It's compressed cardboard is so what it is. And how this worked, and I'm right now, there's probably only a couple of old timers out there who said, geez, I haven't seen one of those in years, or they remember it. And if that's the case, let us know in the comments. What this is here, you would go into the candy store, and he'd have this hanging behind the counter, and usually it was a little eye bolt or something here, an eye hook that had a string attached to the pin punch, so you wouldn't lose it, okay? Because this pin punch, this one here I just made, but it would come back here. You see that little thing? When you bought this board new, you would rip this open and the pin punch would be in there. Now, what you would do is you would go in there, you'd pay a nickel or a quarter, whatever you want to gamble with. I wasn't much of a gambler, man, but I used to love to play this because it was just fun. It was fun to punch these things out. So you would give the guy, you know, a nickel, and you say, okay, I'll try it, you know. Remember, a nickel. Now, you had a chance to win, and look at the graphics on this board. You had a chance to win a quarter, $1, or $2.50. And you can see on the bottom, the last punch in each section receives a quarter. So if you saw one of these sections were all, like this one here, you know, if you saw it only had 3 left, you would say, okay, I'll give you 15 cents. I'm going to get a quarter back anyway, and plus you had 3. So anyway, here's what you would do. You take your pin like this. You would say, okay, let's see. Let me try over here. This one looks lucky. And you would just push it out like this. You see what I just did? You just push that out. Now, this little piece of paper would fall down behind. You would take this like this, and you would open it up, you know, and in there's your ticket, you know. And you can see here, this one says, and it was even, let me see if I can get the secondary focus to come in. There we go. 822. 822. So then you would look on the board, and you would look for 822, and you'd say, oh, no, I didn't win that one. So then you would try again. And, you know, you would keep punching out until hopefully you won. And, if you won a quarter, you might give it back and say, I'll take 5 more, because you were going for that $2.50 back in the day. A lot of fun. Pretty cool, huh? They still have similar things today. It's like kind of gambling. Now, if you were the person that bought this board, you could make $20, $30 back then was a lot of money, but it would take you a long time to sell all these. But at 5 cents a pop, would you play it now? If you saw this in a diner or a restaurant and it was 5 cents a pop, would you say, give me 5, I'll take 5, and you would just punch 5 out, just like that, you know. And then look at the tickets and see, did you win? Let's see what this is. Let's see, 901. Nope, didn't win. But still fun, right? How cool is that? Okay, next up, we've got a little project for today, and that is, I bought this from my buddy Kent. Ready Set. Kent is a great guy. He comes down to the tool meets, and Kent had this, and it was cheap. Kent's stuff is always great, and he always has a bunch of stuff. I picked this up from him, and this is a big ball peen, big of a monster of a ball peen hammer. And when I say big, this one here was pretty heavy. Remember this this here that we did last week, and you can see the size difference. You know, this one's like the next size up. It's a big one. And the handle, you can see here, they put on a handle. This is not a ball peen handle because, you know, remember the ball peen handle's got those ridiculously small necks. This one here looks like a carpenter's hammer handle because remember with a carpenter's hammer, you're pulling nails and things like that. You need a more stout and heavy-duty handle. So I think that's what they put on here. Now, I want to show you the top here. You could see here the top, somebody wedged this in and whatever. Now, to try and take this handle off can be a real pain. It's very tight on there. So here's the dilemma. See, normally I like, when I do my handles, they're on there. The only time this handle is going to be taken out of here is when this thing eventually breaks or something, and then you're going to have to drill it out. It's not moving. Thank goodness I've learned enough through the years to make super tight handles. But I don't know. I don't want to pull this one apart when it might work. You know what I mean? It might be stiff enough. So what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to tighten up and service. Even though this one's tight, but you got those gaps in there, and that could be a problem. And my buddy Chris from CC Scraps just did a ball peen hammer, and I wanted to show you how to get rid of these little voids, you know? And you say, well, what are you going to do about that? How do you get rid of it? I'm going to show you. So what we're going to do, the first thing, this has a nice kind of an octagon handle on it. We're not going to do anything with that, but first thing we're going to drive this down to see if we can seat this any more into the head, because it looks like there's a little gap here. So the first thing we're going to do is take a heavy hammer and bang the bottom of this. Now, you really got to wrap on the bottom of this. I'm going to use, my buddy Ben sent me this Snap-on 48 ounce, beautiful. He sent me a couple of years ago. So we're going to use this 48 ounce dead blow and really wrap on the bottom of this handle, okay? Now you want to keep a fairly loose grip on the handle, enough to hold it from falling, but leave enough so there's movement. Now, you got to wrap hard, because what you want to do is you want to, and you could see we brought the handle proud of the top of that. Remember it was recessed before? Again, keep banging it until nothing comes out. You got to wedge this thing down on the bottom here. So just keep wailing on it. Be mindful of your knuckles. Okay? You see how we're bringing that up? Now I'll do a little more wailing and come back. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove that metal wedge in there. And I'll show you why. First, we're going to use this is a nice Starrett punch, and you can see it's a flat bottom punch here. And we're going to get an angle by the ball. We're going to tap it this way, pushing that wedge out. Okay, now when you get it to this point here, you can flip it around, try it from the other side. Okay. We want to get that wedge out of there. Okay, you can see here it's coming, it's loosening up. Now we're just going to use our vice grip and pull that right out of there. Okay, now you can see we curled up the wood here, and this is what you want. You want the head of the hammer to curl up the wood as it's going up. And then you just take your, and this is one of the beautiful uses of a utility knife, especially a vintage one that belonged to your great-grandfather, but you just press it down and you remove that curling wood. You see how easy that comes off like that? Just remove that with your utility knife, just like this, and pop these little curls off, because you don't want that split you know, that split wood coming up the handle. So you do that all the way around. Again, like I said, this is one of them enjoyable uses of a utility knife. Pop them off. And now here's where you make the decision. Do you want to totally rehandle the handle and take it off and do it? But we're just going to do a quick, we got so many ball peens. Okay, so now we did that. We have our chips here removed from the curls. We have it a little proud, and now we have that hole. Now, what you want to use is you want to use a wood wedge to open it, and then use the steel one this way to split and open it the other way. So let's make a wood wedge to go in there. Years back, I made a project out of poplar. It was actually a rocking chair. The bottom, the round part of the rocking chair, and I bought some poplar, and then when I cut this off here, you can see it was a 2x4 poplar. I got it, I guess, but this was such a nice piece of string. I've been using this for wedges. That's why it's shaped like. I've been cutting wedges out of this. And all you do, remember, you want to keep the grain straight where the strength is, and just cut down at an angle and cut yourself a wedge. Now you can see it's a little bit thicker than wider than what we need. So you're going to just make a mark here. Now you want this the same opening as the hole. You don't want it the same as the handle length. So we're going to mark it up here. We're going to make a line, and we're going to use our utility knife to cut this down. And to do that, remember, you're working with the grain. And when you're working with the grain, it's a lot easier. You're going to split it like this, push down with the utility knife, and you see it'll make a split. Okay, and then clean it up, and that'll be your wedge. Okay, you're going to use your wedge here, and then we're going to straighten this edge out on the bottom. Just cut it across like this. We don't want any real thin area, and run it across a few times with your utility knife, you see? And now we're going to bang this in just like this. Okay, now you can see I slathered a little glue on here. We're going to use that wedge, okay? And we're going to bang this wedge right into here, okay? And we're going to, now normally to bang a wedge in, a good way to do it is to seat the wedge a little bit, just like this here. Turn it upside down on a piece of hard surface and bang the bottom handle. So this way, as you're banging it down, that head wants to, again, pull into the, whereas if you bang it this way, if you bang it too hard, the head wants to pull off. Okay, when you get to the point you won't work anymore using that upside down method, take a small hammer and tap it. Okay, and just tap it like this. You're going to split the wedge. It's going to happen because, you know, you're putting tremendous force on here. But a lot of light taps to get this down into as far in as you can. And remember, you got that glue there. Don't worry about the split. You're always going to have wedges split and things like that. But you want to tap this in as deep as it'll go. If it splits off like that, just don't worry, put it over there. Just keep tapping it until you can't get this in anymore. And it should look kind of mashed up by the time you're finished. Okay? And when that's in there, that's as tight as it can be. Now we just have to worry about widening it. Okay, now you have your wedge, okay? It can't go in anymore. Now you take your hacksaw, okay? And you run your hacksaw down here and you cut that wedge flush, okay? Now you have that nice and flush. Now you're still going to have gaps. So now you see you got a gap here. You got a gap, this one's tight, this is tight, but you got a little gap here. Now we put our steel wedge, and again, we've used the steel wedge because you wouldn't be able to drive a wood wedge in. It's too tight. So now the steel wedge goes in this way so that it widens it this way and fills in these gaps. Now you can see we started the wedge in there. Now you can do it, you can dake it in, you can press it in, you can tap it in with a hammer using this, making sure this is on a solid surface. But either way, we got to get that down to expand it. Okay, everybody's favorite, the dake. Now, speaking of the fly, maybe this is where my fascination with hydraulic presses came in. And if you've ever seen the ending of the fly, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's get this in there. I had to actually remove the nose cone just because I don't have enough room. But I'm only doing this just to get it down so I can fit the nose cone in. Let's press it down. You can see how it's starting. We got just over a ton actually to press down. But you see, we're pushing this down. We're just making enough room that we could put the nose cone on, okay? Now, we'll lower that. We'll release that here. Now we'll put the nose cone on this part here, so not to damage the piston. And then now we have enough room. Okay, we just barely made it. Let's give it a couple presses down here. Just get it in a little bit further, and then we'll reset it. Okay, because we had to, again, you can see it's going a little bit, when it gets a little bit crooked, you can make up for it by tilting the hammer a little bit, okay? We'll do that like that. Hopefully that'll press in straight now. There we go. How beautiful is that? Look at that. Okay, now this is where you want your head to look like it was done right. Now, before you bang this down any further, I already got it flush, but before you bang it down any further, you see there's minute gaps on the side. Now, that's only because, and you don't want to start spreading this too far because you don't want to create a split. So here's what you do. What you do is you take that wedge, remember that wedge area that you cut off? Well, you make a mini wedge, okay? Just like this. You're going to dip it in glue, and you're going to fill in the gaps over here, like that. Any gap that you might have, and you're going to tap this in. And there's no way this is moving anyway, but that's going to reassure you that there's no space for this head to wobble. So you're going to, any gaps that you can't fill in with wedges, which, you know, that's the way it is. A lot of times the handles just won't split or whatever. So you fill it in with small hardwood wedges dipped in glue, pressed in there, and that's never going to move. Now, you see here? See this? We glued the wedge here. We got glue on both sides. I'm going to put this little down. There's a very small gap there. I'm going to push this in like that. We're going to tap it in. Okay, lightly. Keep tapping it. Now what's going to happen is eventually when you tap it, it's going to get stuck in there and it's going to just break off. That's fine. Just keep tapping it until it breaks. There we go. Once it breaks off, that is wedged in there and that's not going anywhere. Tap it down. Again, you have it's glued in there. You do that with every single gap that you see. If you have any gap in there whatsoever, you put a mini wedge in there until it's totally filled on top. Then when it's totally filled, you take this to the belt sander. After you bang this down just a little bit more, you take this to the belt sander and smooth it over. Now you're going to look over your entire hammer. Anywhere you have a slight mini, like over here, you have this most minute of gaps. Make a little mini wedge like this, dip it in glue, tap it in there so that there can be absolutely no movement on this hammer. Again, the glue is important because that'll hold it next to the wood and won't let it move or fall out. But now when you get it like this, then you can take it to the belt sander. We peened down this wedge, expanded it up more, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's cleaned up. Do you see there? Do you see how that filled in that gap right there? Now, you're trying, obviously, when you're fitting the handle, you always try and get the contour, but sometimes you can't. So you have to make up for it with these small little wedges, and eventually you'll get it so tight in there that there's no way that this can move off of there. Okay, now I ask you, is that not a thing of beauty? Look at that. The wood wedge split in, all the gaps filled, everything. You don't even see those extra wedges that we had to put in there to fill out any excess gaps. That is as solid as can be. Even the back here, you can see solid. This is not moving. You will never get that off of there. Now, after 24 hours, when the glue dries and sets up good, you can put a little linseed oil on here to protect the ends. But we might finish this hammer. It depends if you want to see this done up similar to this. Let me know. Let me know in the comments because I don't want to run too long on this video. But something that everybody should know, that's how you get rid of those ugly, unsightly gaps that you might have in your handle and make for a solid fitting handle. Okay, so in closing, we had a bit of a mosh today. We were all over the place, had a lot of fun down here, but it's starting to get uncomfortably warm. I'm going to go upstairs, have a little dinner, and start editing this. You know, the editing always takes much longer than the actual filming, so we'll see how many minutes we have. I'm pretty sure we're close to our ballpark number. Hope you have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care now. Bye-bye.